Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today, we want to get you fired up about this children's book. The title, The Mommy Button, an answer to a curious child question. Its author is Beth and Salinas. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do, everyone. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Beth Ann. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, before we start talking about your book, as is the custom here on the show, we give every guest an opportunity to introduce themselves to our listeners for those folks who may be unfamiliar with you or your work. So the first question is, what makes you you? What makes Beth Ann Beth Ann?
Well, I just try to be a child of God and be the best I can be in my vocations that He set before me, and I like to talk, so this might be interesting. And I'm just glad that I have an opportunity to share with you guys today and for you to get to know me a little better.
Sure. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that it was simply the next thing that presented along your life path?
No, it actually was an accident. So I just had a little bit of a aha moment, and with seeing an ultrasound of my first child, and after that I just kept thinking about this connection between mother and child, and I wrote the book. So it wasn't really planned.
Now, the title of your book, The Mommy Button, an answer to a curious child question. How did you come about that title?
Well, because a lot of people try to figure out why we have belly buttons, and I just felt that it's really called the mommy button because that's how we got our connection in the womb with our mom. That's how we got oxygen. That's how we got fed when we were growing. And so it was just makes sense because a lot of kids talk about it, like when they're 1, 2, 3 years old, about why we have this thing on our abdomen. And it was just a curious thing always. And so I can kind of change the name to the mommy button.
I like it. I think that's really cute. Now, for so many of the authors that I have on, when they were in the writing process, it was, I need to be away from everyone. I need that quiet time, or first thing in the morning, or really late at night. Did you have a particular environment or time of day that you found was really helpful to you while you were writing?
Well, I wish I could tell you that, but in this particular instance, I I just kind of sat down on my break at work. I was working at a school at the time and literally wrote it in one setting. That's how powerful it was. That's how much it was ingrained in my head. But the second part of the series, it's called The Daddy Mirror. That one I've had to work on, and it was mainly at night because I had kids at the time. So once they were asleep, then I tried to work on this next book called The Daddy Mirror. But that's what the process is right now.
I think that's going to be really cute. I can already tell. I like the title of the book. I think that's going to be amazing. Love it. Now, since you are writing a children's book, did you find that there were some lessons along the way that you were sharing in your book that you wish that, when I was a little person, I wish someone would have told me this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I always tried to I remember as a child thinking, why do I have this thing on my abdomen? Like, everyone calls it something different, like a navel or a belly button or sound button or, whatever, or they just kind of shoo you away. And in this book, it kind of goes through that pattern of different people telling this little girl, what it is. And then at the end, how her mom just said, well, that's how you were connected to me. That's where your umbilical cord was. And it was like a concrete answer to this question of why we have a belly button, or in this case, I changed it to the mommy button.
I like the mommy button. I think that is adorable. Simply because, for little kids, an umbilical cord is like, a what? That's really, hard to imagine for some kids. But like a mommy button, they know what a button looks like on their clothes, and it's like, oh wow, like I used to be attached to you. Oh, that's so cute. And how they could run away with that imagery. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, would you consider yourself to be a successful writer, in that we all have different definitions of what it means to be a successful fill in the blank? For some people, it's I'm a successful writer simply because the book is published. I never thought that it would get that far. Others have a dream of, once I sell 100 books or 1,000 books, whatever the number is. Not the same way that we think of being successful as far as our other careers are concerned, the big house or the big cars or those things.
Right.
But was there a particular goal that you set for yourself as far as your writing was concerned? Were you able to achieve it? Have you become a successful writer in your mind's eye?
I believe I have. I believe God put this in my mind to share with others. And if it only reached one person, that's all it needed. And I have reached, at least I know for sure, about 100 people, because I've given away books as gifts and other people have bought books from me as gifts. And I know that there's been a few things sold online as well. So just one person knowing that they're connected to their mom and that God created that bond with them was all I needed to feel successful. And there's been a lot more than that. So it feels amazing that I could share that, what God shared with me with others.
Absolutely. And I love your answer. And you are so right. It really is. And I've shared, the listeners have heard me say before, when I was a younger person, perhaps like 13 or so, I didn't understand what people meant by that. If I could just help one person, if one person is inspired, and I'm going, really? Do they really mean that? Not disbelieving them, but just like, is that true? Like, that's 100% true. And then, you become an adult and you do something and you really, if I just helped one person, then it was worth, the extra pots of coffee that I drank. So, making
Right.
sure that this was put out successfully. So you are so right about that. Now, considering you have successfully written a book, it is available to the general public. Do you have any advice for some of our young writers or new writers out there that may be having a tough go at trying to figure out, how do I get this ball rolling?
Well, I did write poetry earlier in my life. I never got any of that published. But sticking with it is definitely one of the major things. Even if you can only spend, a few minutes a week on it, just do it. Plan the time to do it. Or in some cases, if something inspires you and you just keep thinking about it, get it done, write it out. You can always go back and edit it later. You can always change it. Just get it out. So then you have that idea or whatever is sparking or whatever that light bulb is telling you to write down. That's really all I have to say is just make sure you give yourself some time and get it done.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you on that. That's the same advice that I gave to my clients when they're having a really tough time at just communication in general, be it that it's
Right.
fashioning their thoughts in order to have better control over their lives, or they want to communicate with a spouse or partner. It's just get it out. Just freestyle, right? Who cares if the
Right.
punctuation is there or if the spelling is correct? Just get it out of your head and onto that paper, or type it. Many times we're on our laptops.
Absolutely.
Just get typing, but just get it out of your head. You have
Yep.
given a nugget of wisdom there. I have to agree with you 1,000%. Well, Beth, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, please, of the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
It is The Mommy Button, answer to a curious child's question. You can get it on Google Play as an ebook and at different Barnes and Nobles online. And I also believe there is a way to get it other places, but a Google search can help you with that.
Alrighty.
And
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is Beth Salinas, and we're talking about her book, The Mommy Button, an answer to a curious child question. I know that is such an adorable title of the book, The Mommy Button. That's our belly buttons, y'all. I know. We should have thought of that, right? I love it. I love it. Now, Beth, for your book, as far as the child who's reading your book, did you gear it towards a particular age group? Like, is it okay for our little ones that are in elementary school to read it, like all the way up to fifth grade, or do you think that it should have a cutoff at third grade? How did you plan for your ideal reader? Who did you plan for?
Really anyone that can read or anyone that would be willing to listen to read. It's great for, ones that are in preschool or even, one or two that are starting to ask questions. And I know that I've had a 50-year-old that read it for the first time and cried her eyes out. Because she's just like, oh my goodness, that is a connection to my mom. I'll always have. So it really can transcend all ages because we all have moms. And but really geared towards more kids for sure, like preschool to
Right.
third, fourth, fifth grade. So
Gotcha. No, I love that. I had another author on one time, and their answer was so like eye opening. Had never thought of it like this, but he said, even though my book is geared for children, he says, but if you've just come to the country and you don't speak English, as you learn to speak English, you have to learn to read slowly, just like little people do. I was like,
right,
you know what? You're right. You don't just all of a sudden, jump right into Shakespeare. You're right.
right,
We do have to, take those baby steps for anyone who's fresh to the country. So I was like, amazing, great book. So I could see how this could be a really good book, no matter your age. I do like that answer. That's awesome. Now, when do you think you realized that words had power? Not just your words, but just words in general, that they could convey a message, that they could take someone along on a journey, and you could see the picture that was being painted by words. When did that dawn on you, like, wow?
I probably was pretty early on. It was probably in elementary school when I was able to do a little bit more reading and with my classmates. But I also noticed it in Sunday school. I noticed it at church. Um, I would say that really early on in my life, I guess. I never realized that my words that I believe God gave me could, do what they did. But God is amazing and he can do a lot of things without our knowing
Right.
sometimes, I think.
Right.
So,
That's true. You are so right there. I remember the first time that we got one of the reports back, one of the Nielsen reports back, and I realized the numbers, and I said, "Oh my goodness, Lord, look at all that you are doing." That it's not about me, but I have guests on here that are able to reach that number of people to share about their book. Like, wow, amazing.
Right.
So you're right. Words in general just have so much power. And when we take a moment to stop and look, it's like, God is awesome. Because I don't think I could have done this by myself. So
Right.
you are so right there. I love it. Now, the characters in your book, this is usually something that I ask my authors that have written books that are for adults. And I realize that you can't give it all away. My listeners know what I'm going to say. You have to buy the book to get the whole story. But can you tell us a little bit, about the characters in your book?
Basically it's just a little girl who's trying to answer a question. The girl is actually based on my daughter, Rachel. And her name is actually in the illustrations that my sister drew. And my friend Natalie helped edit for me as well. But, so it just kind of goes through her day of, this question of why we have this thing on our abdomen. And, at the end of the day, she's talking to her mom, and her mom gives her this completely like awestruck moment of, oh, God is amazing. I'm connected to my mom. So it's just a really fun Christian child's book that, um, but really it's just about a curious child.
Yeah,
So
I love it. I love it. Now, asking you some questions about perspective and what you do professionally or in your personal life, if you will. Now, you are in a very beautiful position in my eyes in that you have functioned as a teacher. You have your education is within special education, and you are also a pastor's wife. So
yeah.
those two careers, if you will, give you a unique perspective. Do you think that being a teacher, and especially one that has that extra credentialing with special education, do you think that that helped you to write the book and be mindful of the needs of the child?
Oh, I think so. I think God has given me a unique way of responding to the world around me. I think it helps me in how I can be a teacher in special ed for sure. I don't think black and white all the time. I don't think in boxes. I look at the person and I go with what I feel is best for them or the situation. I don't. So I just think that helped me say, hey, let's share this, like, because all kids need answers to questions, even ones that don't talk. So
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that teachers that deal with anyone who has an additional layer of difficulty, you guys are so patient and you're so kind. I remember for a while there, I was a teacher's assistant in a special education and special needs class, and
yeah.
just I loved how kind she was. And I was really happy because I wanted to be able to take that time. And she was like, yes, please. That's one of the things that we need is for someone who's not going to be, short with the kids or want to, hurry them along when they need that extra time. So thank
Right.
you for being mindful of how we need to be with our children because they're people too. They just happen to be smaller than us, but they want that love and that kindness and that patience the same way
Absolutely.
that we do.
Absolutely.
So I love it. I love it. Well, Beth and Salinas, thank you so much for coming on Daily Spark and spending time with me today. And really, I think you have enlightened, inspired, and empowered others. So thank you for doing that with your children's book. Now, before I let you go, though, one last time, if you can remind everyone of the title of your book, where we can get a copy, and for anyone who wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
It is the mommy button, an answer to a curious child's question. You can find it as an easy Google search, the mommy button, and where the books are sold. And also, you can find me on the Facebook called the Mommy Button page. I would love to message with you.
I love it. Thank you again, Beth Ann, for being on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela today.
Well, thank you.
And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here as well. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want to get you fired up about healing spiritually. My guest today is Dr. Sara Ann Lincoln, and we'll be talking about her book, Bible Alive, a guide to discovering the ageless vitality of the Bible for teachers and students. Now, you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Dr. Sara. Thank you so much for being on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela today.
Good morning to you.
Now, as is the tradition here on the show, we always give our authors an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few people out there that are unfamiliar with you or your work. So my first question for you is, what makes you you?
What makes me me? Of course, my mom and dad, but in particular, something my mom and dad gave to me, and that was a Bible, a leather Bible, with my name embossed on the front, a red letter Bible, the words of Jesus, all in red letters. I cherished that Bible. I read that Bible.
I love that. I do remember those Bibles in particular were always special because they meant so much to you. You could see exactly when the Lord was speaking, and it did hit you a little differently. You are so right. I think the last Bible I received like that was for graduation, and it was just beautiful. I have to agree, a good thing they have done. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that that was just the next thing along your life path?
Well, I've always been a teacher, and a teacher, in a way, is an author. So I loved teaching and was considered to be a good teacher. After many years of teaching, I started taking notes when I read the Bible or heard the Bible being discussed, and began to have my own ideas about what I'd like to say about the Bible. So for years, I kept notes on my Bible reading.
And I like that you've done that. It does allow for great discussion later because you find that many people have the same questions or have come to the same epiphany that you have. So absolutely, that was smart on your part. Now, the title of your book, Bible Alive, A Guide to Discovering the Ageless Vitality of the Bible for Teachers and Students. How did you come about that title?
Good question. I felt like the Bible was so much a part of my life and is so full of life examples of how to live the best kind of life, which honors God and helps you serve and bless other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Dr. Sara, I have to ask, I know this is one of the things that you address, and that is the question of, does the Bible really relate to the problems that we're facing today? Many times people say it's an ancient book dealing with ancient times. How do you address that?
Oh, yes, the Bible was written thousands of years ago, but the people at that time faced the same challenges that we face today. For example, injustice, poverty, illness, fear. And so what they have to teach us, I think we can be very willing to listen to what they teach us.
I have to agree with you there. Now, you know there's always that person who says, yeah, but, right? That person who just wants to take it a little step further. But you're right. We have been dealing with those types of issues for quite some time. How do you help the person who wants to go a little deeper and say, but I don't see if they were dealing with it then and we're dealing with it now, how has it been fixed or how has it been dealt with? What do you say to that person who needs a little bit more from you?
Well, if I understand the question, it's about how to read the Bible. To read the Bible with more of an open heart, open mind, ready to learn, not ready to discount people and events that occurred thousands of years ago.
You know, I have to agree with you there. For so many people, they read the stories and they kind of just gloss over it. They don't really take the time to digest the lesson that is in the story that they have just read. The accounting is included in the Bible for us to learn from it. So you are so right. They do need to really kind of dig deeper.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Now, you say that all people are able to talk to God. How should we understand that statement?
All people can talk to God because that is God's plan. God is talking to us, enabling us to listen, blessing us, and so we increase in our desire to and our ability to talk to God and listen to God.
Now, for someone who says, okay, I understand that God may be talking to us, but how do I know the difference between God's voice and my own voice talking to me?
Yes, good question. I think we know it's God's voice when it is a message of love and forgiveness and empowerment. God wants us to be His children and act like we are His children, gifted for every need. We need to have gifted with every skill we need for life.
I love that answer. And you are so right, Dr. Sarah. God has gifted us for everything that we need. If only we would remember that. If only we would remember that. I think that's why we get, people in general get so frustrated sometimes. They pray about something and they expect for it to happen within a nanosecond. And sometimes it is that patience. And in that patience, we are able to remember, oh yeah, God gave that to me 2 weeks ago. Let me walk in that confidence, or let me walk in this new sense of self. So you are so right there. Well, Dr. Sarah, it is time for us to take a very short break. But listeners, don't you go anywhere. Before we go, let me remind you that Bible Alive, a guide to discovering the ageless vitality of the Bible for teachers and students, is of course available on Amazon and where books are sold. We will be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchchester. My guest today is Dr. Sarah Ann Lincoln, and we're talking to her about her book, Bible Alive, a guide to discovering the ageless vitality of the Bible for teachers and students. And I really, really like the title because it tells you exactly what you're going to address. First of all, I love that she says ageless vitality of the Bible, because absolutely the Bible has stood the test of time, but this is also for teachers and students. So no matter what level you're on, this book is for you, and I love it. My next question for you, Dr. Sarah, is this. Many people say that the Bible doesn't make sense to them. Like, it doesn't make sense at all. They can't make heads or tails of it. What do you say to that person, or how do you help them better understand how they can better read and understand the Bible?
Well, I would suggest to anyone that they simply try again. Read the Bible with an open heart, an open mind, expecting to gain something new that they've never found before. That's what I would recommend.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Dr. Sarah, hopefully we're not putting you on the spot here, or if you want us to come back to it, we definitely can. But do you ever share personal examples of how the Bible has helped you? I know that I personally share the story. I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I have scriptures that have helped me along the way. Do you ever share personal stories of how the Bible has helped you?
Yes. I have a story about my early career as a teacher. I was a young teacher of first grade, and the principal brought in a little girl who would not interact with the other children, would not talk. I thought, oh, how can I help? I'm listening, God, I'm listening. And I remember the story of Moses, and that God said to Moses, I will be with thy mouth, Sarah. I will teach you how you are to handle this situation. So I relaxed and was grateful with that answer, and I simply thought, and my thought and behavior just included her along with all the other children. And it wasn't long before she did interact with the others, and she did begin coming to the reading group. Now, I have to say one more thing. This was not only a step forward for this little girl. It was a great lesson for the other 25 children in the class who saw that our approach to something unexpected and a little scary needs to be just calm and expectant. So those members of the class learned something important, I think, as they watched this little girl come into her own.
What a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh wow. Yeah, that was very touching. I love that. And teachers, you guys are such special people because you are the caregivers to our children when they are away from us during the day, and that is such a special place. So thank you for being exactly what that little girl needed at that particular time. That is beautiful. Now, Sister Sarah, there are a lot of books out there that talk about, teach on, discuss the Bible. And people will say, man, there's rows and rows of books here. How do I know which one to choose? So my question to you is, what makes your book a little different? What makes your book stand out from some of the others?
I know about those many books about the Bible. I have read a number of them and learned from what those books say about the history of God's people, which is all people. My book, Bible Alive, takes the implications of the moral and spiritual implications of all that we've learned from scholars about the Bible and applies those to the daily lives of the students who I'm teaching.
I like that. Now, would you say that um, when you were writing, Dr. Sarah, the process of it all, would you say that you needed to be away from the hustle and bustle of the day in order to gather your thoughts and put that down? What was your process like with that?
Well, of course, any writer needs a little place of quiet and privacy. But my book really evolved from many years of teaching Sunday school. So I had all those notes from many years, notes of things that I was teaching the children and ways that they were responding. So I had all that to rely on and call forth.
Yes, yes. Now, when someone purchases a copy of the book, how do you suggest that they read it? Should they read from cover to cover? Should they read chapter per chapter, really digesting the chapter before they go to the next? What's your suggestion there?
Well, when I read a book, I always start at the beginning. But I know some people like to just look through the book at the different sections, the different topics it covers, and maybe they'll start with that topic. So the way you read a book is the way you read a book, and so they can do the same with my book. They can look at the table of contents and think, oh, that sounds especially interesting, so they'll start there, and that's fine.
Oh, I really like that. And I always ask that question because you're right. People do read books the way that they read books. But when you're able to read it topic by topic, you never know where someone is in their life. And they may need to start with a particular topic and they find, oh, wow, she's really given me, some meat here, something to chew on. This is a great book. So you're right. I like that. I like that. Now, as far as the perfect reader, so many times when authors are writing, they have a particular age group or reader in mind. Would your book be appropriate for someone as young as high school, or would you suggest that they are a little older than college age?
It was high school and college students who I was teaching for many years. So I have them in mind, high school students. Let's say teenagers. Teenagers, that's my audience.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for including them. I know that for many people, they say, I don't write for teens. I write for adults, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we do need to also make sure that we are giving them some spiritual development books to read as well. So very mindful on your part. I love it. I love it. Now, for someone who says, I love what Dr. Sarah is saying, but I'm new to the faith. I just joined a church a few weeks ago, or I wasn't raised in Christianity, and I'm learning. I don't know. For someone who's new to the faith, would your book be appropriate for them as well?
Good question. New to the faith. Someone who is new to the study of Christianity is discovering how much Christianity includes in the way of prophets and patriarchs and the words and life of Christ Jesus. So they wonder, that's a lot. How do I take it all in? So I would suggest that anyone just look at that table of contents and say, I think this is of interest. I'm especially interested in Elijah and Elisha and what they were able to do. Or maybe they want to go straight to the story of Christ Jesus and what he did.
Smart suggestion. I like that. So instead of being overwhelmed and trying to read the entire book and get lost or become disheartened in any way, you're saying read it in those bite-sized pieces. Look in that table of contents and find that thing that you are familiar with. Read that and allow that to give you something to chew on. I love that suggestion. I love it. Now, for those new authors out there or potential authors, everyone starts off with that thought, I should write a book. And they're gathering their information, they're doing their research, and they're really starting to put this book together. But for that person who's done all of that, but they still haven't quite put it out there to be published, do you have any suggestions for that aspiring, that budding author that's still a little nervous about actually taking that final step and putting their book out there?
Well, anyone who is writing a book, they have to especially trust their heart and mind, what they want to say, and be honest about putting it out there. Now, yes, how they word it, that's important. So, no doubt, these budding authors have friends. Stands to reason they would ask their friends to read through and see if they had any reaction or any suggestion about how something could be worded differently.
And you are so right. I know that I have been blessed with great friends, and especially two friends in particular who happened to be teachers. I asked them as well, read over this for me. Just give me your point of view. Change anything that needs to be changed. Make the suggestion. Don't be afraid. Don't hold anything back. I'm asking you because I know that you're going to give me your honest feedback. And you are so right. That is incredibly, incredibly helpful. Thank you for that bit. Now, Dr. Sara, my last question for you, and that is dealing with you. You mentioned that you have worked with our teenagers, and it is so important that we keep them informed, we keep them inspired, and we keep them uplifted. Do you have any words of encouragement for some of our younger listeners who happen to be teenagers or they're about to go off to college? Do you have any words of wisdom or inspiration for them before I let you go with this interview today?
Well, always the best advice is remember God. talk to God, listen to God, trust what God is telling you, and remember humility. One learns the best who is willing to be humble. The more humble you are, the more confidence you have, and thus the greater success you have in whatever your endeavor. Humility.
I love it. Such great advice. Dr. Sara Ann Lincoln, thank you so much for coming by Daily Spark with Dr. Angela, spending some time not only with me but with our listeners today. Now, before I let you go, can you remind us one last time, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, for anyone who wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
The title of my book is Bible Alive, a guide to understanding the ageless vitality of the Bible for teachers and students. Remember, Bible Alive is one word, and you can find my book on Amazon. Search Bible Alive, one word, and then Bible Alive, Lincoln. And that will bring the book, my book up, Bible Alive, Lincoln.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Dr. Sara, thank you again for being a guest on the show here today. But before I let you go, if you could please, can you remind everyone one last time, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
The title of my book is Bible Alive, a guide to understanding the ageless vitality of the Bible for teachers and students. Go to Amazon.com and search Bible Alive, Lincoln. That's Bible Alive, one word, Lincoln. If you want to get in touch with me, please contact my editor. His address is mhedge@hedgeco.com. That's the letter M, Hedge, mhedge@hedgeco.com.
I love it. Thank you again, Dr. Sara, for being on the show today.
Thank you.